Hello, everyone. Welcome into Above My Pay Grade. My name is Eric. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Have a couple stories I want to talk about before we get into your questions. Lucy Bean, I see you've asked a couple already. Thanks for doing that. Um, let's see. So, first story, I saw this, and it's the inflation rate in the United States. And you'll notice these are all products that people need, and not one of them is under 8%. So let's take a look. This is from the Visual Capitalist. So these are goods this year, and all of them are mostly needs. Okay, so for some reason, food at elementary schools, one might assume that's because of the government, have gone up 254%, kind of like college tuition went up way higher than the rate of inflation because they're subsidized. Fuel's gone up. You guys can read all this, but necessities, right? Flour, public transportation. Not one of these, not one of these is under 8%, except smartphones, um, which is definitely not a necessity. I guess we have a couple here, sorry. Alcoholic, alcoholic beverages at home and apparel are under 8%. So, why am I showing this slide? Real inflation for your average American is different for everybody, but all these things take up a more of a lion's share of people's budget than for the middle class and the lower class than it does for the rich. Hence why the rich get richer. I wanted to show you one other story here. If you didn't hear, I think it was yesterday, HIMAR missiles hit rather large Russian base. And those were provided by, guess who? The United States. Now, I've said this in a video before. If somebody was throwing rocks at you and there was somebody next to them handing them the rocks, knowing that they were throwing them at you, probably wouldn't be mad just at the person throwing the rocks. Probably be mad at both people, right? And I don't know what the long game is here. I'll be honest. Both with Russia and the United States, because it seems like a war that really can't be won by Ukraine. I think to myself, okay, this military is is very much inferior to the Russian military. That's just a fact. When it comes to firepower and all that, and then on top of that, the Russians have nukes. Okay, so how does this play out? But poking the bear continues. It says here in the article, Russian forces have suffered what may be the single biggest loss of the war in an attack after Ukrainian strike killed multiple dozens or possibly hundreds of newly mobilized troops on the east of the country. Moscow is now pointing to the U.S.'s role in the devastating attack. Now, I want to think that there's people in charge who are strategists who are making these decisions and doing them in the interest of United States citizens. But I still don't know. And no one's really been able to tell me why Ukraine is has any interest to the United States, how it protects American citizens, or protects the Constitution. On top of the fact that a lot of people say, well, if there's a threat to democracy anywhere, it's a threat to democracy everywhere. And this doesn't take into account that there's wars going on everywhere. There's human suffering everywhere. Northern Africa, there's a ton of human suffering, and yet we're not involved there. So, why Ukraine? I don't know. And I think there's something fishy going on. Meaning, if the facts don't add up, it doesn't seem like the tale that's being told, which is we just want to help spread democracy. They don't seem like a democratic country to me. Anyways, those are the stories I was looking at this afternoon. Let's take a look at your questions. Princess Consuela Banana Hammock, did you change your username? My first question is why? I assume this is Princess Consuela Banana Hammock. All right, so from Lucy Bean, question: what are the benefits of a mustache when shit hits the fan? Well, some may say it's a natural birth control. It repels women. I don't know if that's a good thing, but it's good for my wife. Repel other women. My wife hates it, but since I was able to not shave over Christmas, I might grow it out again. My wife's not a fan of it though, so her vote counts. All right, a couple more. Government is bailing out the Teamsters pension. Seems to be happening a lot these days. What happens to Grandma's Social Security when all the private pensions get a bailout? It's hard to do the math. I'm going to do a video. I'm going to be on the road this week, so I'll have some time to do a video on what the national budget, how that works, and then I'm going to kind of take it down to the individual level, what every individual owes of our national debt, how much of our national debt each individual takes on. And so I'm going to kind of break it down into like a personal budget. But at some point, and I said this the other day, the bubble is a bubble of confidence, right? So what do I mean by that? What happens, because it can happen really slowly and then all at once. And I've read this before and I agree with it. Humans don't understand exponential growth, meaning if let's say there's 10% of the United States citizens that are like, that understand what's going on. The dollar system is failing and they're trying to run to other currencies, gold, silver, Bitcoin, what have you. What about those on fixed income, like you asked, Social Security? I think they'll be the last to realize it because they, in a way, they're paid to not think about this because they're getting the money from the government, even the government took it from them in the first place with Social Security. But yeah, I think what happens to Grandma's Social Security, that slide at the beginning kind of tells the whole story. If inflation on necessities, which you saw all the things I just posted, are above 8%, government's going to continue to underestimate inflation, and the purchasing power of Social Security will continue to go down. Unfortunately, I think it's, not to belabor the point, one of the grossest things in the world is this public-private situation going on in business, going on in the school system, teachers' unions who are unionizing and giving to politicians, all that stuff, uber corrupt. And now politicians are actually bailing out private pensions. Okay. All right. From your skill set in the military for shit hit the fan, what is the important thing to learn? How to read a compass, map, or great question. So I like to, if we ever do a meetup, by the way, if the like Economic Ninja ever does another meetup, I'm going to try to go to that, and then maybe one of those days we can actually go into the field and I can show you guys a couple of things I teach people. But what's going to kill you first? So filter it like that. 3 minutes without oxygen. What is it? 3 days without water. 3 weeks without food. So in that order, you need to understand how to purify water, how to find water sources, low-lying areas, vegetation, yada, yada. So you need to be able to access water and have clean water. So either a purification source or be able to boil water. So that's number one. And then this is assuming that you're not broken, that you don't have an injury. If you have an injury, field medicine is obviously very important, but the number one skill is that you can actually fix is having a tourniquet. Tell everyone to have a tourniquet on them, like in their car or whatnot, because that is a actual life-saving device. A sucking chest wound, for instance, it's a pretty hard injury to fix if you don't have any medical training or any medical devices. a bleeder, an arterial bleed, not so complicated. Just put a tourniquet on it. So what I would say is know how to acquire water, know how to purify it, know how to start a fire. And what I mean by that is in what conditions would you need a fire? Cold, wet, nasty. So if it's cold, wet, nasty, it's a lot harder to start a fire. So practice that. And then obviously practice building shelters. So, and then I would say have like a grab and go bag, what clothes you have and all that kind of stuff. Maybe I'll do a video that's a little bit more in depth on that. If you guys would like that, let me know. It's kind of hard to do it on YouTube without going out in the field and showing people. So, all right. Ukraine hit Russian military barracks today with HIMARS. How do you think Russia responds? Have they woke the bear? I don't know. I think Putin's not dumb. And I think it's very naive to underestimate Putin. Like, he was the head of the KGB. You don't get to the head of the KGB by being a dummy. He's a strategist. So he's doing something that I don't think is obvious. So what I mean by that is I think he might be trying to de-dollarize the world. Because what he did is call Europe's bluff to some degree. They thought that they could sanction Russia, and in reality, Russia, in a way, like Europe is punching themselves in the face, as George Gammon says. Because who needs who more? Does Europe need Russian energy more, or does Russia need Europe to pay them dollars more? Right? There's always going to be demand. So, have they woken the bear? I think he's already awake, but I think he's playing some other game other than just trying to take Ukraine. I think there's something more complicated going on, more complex. Seems like Russia is trying to not escalate things, but at some point they're going to hit back. Yeah, I don't really fall into the camp of Russia's going to use a nuke. I mean, that's kind of suicide to some degree, but we might be trying to I don't know, have them do that. I don't know. But the point, so Russian military is far, far superior to the Ukrainian military, both in weapons and in personnel. So I don't think we've seen the full might and power of the Russian army yet. So, but like I said before, if somebody's throwing rocks at you, and there's another person next to them handing them the rocks, throwing them at you, you might be mad at them both, right? And we're handing Ukraine rocks. We're just saying, here's some missiles, here's this, here's that. And at the same time, I don't know if you read about the Minsk agreements. This is from 2014 when Russia invaded Crimea. The German chancellor at the time came out in December of this year, and she said that was just a ploy to get Ukraine more arms, because that was an agreement to cease fire back in 2014. And that was just what she said. This is I'm blanking on her name right now. What she said is that was just a ploy to get Ukrainian more armor and buy time for when they go to war with Russia. So kind of the same thing with NATO. Kind of, we weren't supposed to expand, and we aren't holding to our side of the bargain. Not saying that makes Putin a good guy, but what would we do if Russia put arms in Cuba? Oh, wait, that actually happened. All right, what pretext would be needed to get America pro Russia war? A nuke in New York, and then again, what nukes everywhere? I'll lose. Yeah, some kind of false flag. And I say false flag because name a war in the last 50 years that didn't involve one, because seem to all involve some kind of false flag. Um, read into Operation Northwoods. That's a good one too. But American casualties of some kind would. That's when Americans were like, yeah, let's go to war with Russia. Unfortunately. All right, Melissa, food storage. Yes, great idea. Also, it's one of the best returning investments of 2022 is buying food. So it's a win-win. Not too many people are talking about survival skills. Good question. Yes. Yeah, if you guys want me to do a video on that, I'm happy to do it. My best advice is you can't really learn things from a PowerPoint or even a talking head on YouTube. Yes, there's tons of stuff. There's a guy I used to work with. He has a YouTube channel called Survival Schoolhouse. He does a good job of kind of explaining some of the things we do, but you have to get practice. So if you've never been in, like, let's say you live in a place where it gets into negative territory when it comes to temperature. If you've never been outside and experienced, like, hey, either I produce heat somehow, or I'm going to be cold. That's the kind of practice you need. So when I'm talking about building a fire in wet, sloppy, nasty conditions, that's what I'm talking about. Tourniquet, good advice. Now that's on my list. Yeah. Make sure you can put a tourniquet on with one arm, because most of them are two. The way they're threaded through, it requires two arms. But let's hypothetically think you have an arterial bleed on your left arm. It probably doesn't work. So be able to put it on with one arm. What's up, electrical prepper? How are you? Hope you all had a great New Year's. Florida Rich, you go from talking about economics to talking about prep survival. I'm liking your channel more each day. Yeah, so if you didn't know, I am a SEER specialist in the Air Force. So that stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. So we teach people, mainly pilots, if they were to eject behind enemy lines, like all the emergency procedures, post-ejection, how to survive off the land, if they get captured, how to resist interrogation, all that kind of stuff. It's a fun job, but yeah, so that's my day job. So it kind of blends pretty nicely. And I would also say economics, the more I kind of study it, is really the study of human behavior. And when you look at things, this is what I find interesting. You look at Germany pre-World War II, and it was the economics that led to people being desperate. It was the hyperinflation that caused the socio-political reaction. So that led Hitler to be democratically elected. So I think they're linked big time. I've been missing. I haven't done. I was in Chicago for like a week and a half, so I haven't done a live stream since before I left. So I don't think you missed any. Yeah, like I said, probably the tourniquet is probably the number one life-saving tool. And the other thing I would contemplate with a tourniquet is if you're losing blood. I always tell people, what makes you warm? It's your blood flowing throughout your body. What's happening when you're losing it? It's not flowing throughout your body. So oftentimes, like in Afghanistan, if we had somebody injured, especially a bleeder, we'd wrap them up like a taco in a space blanket, because they could go hypothermic even if it was summertime. So people can go into shock, but they can also start shivering because what's happening to their blood is leaving their body, meaning they're not really getting warm. Okay, Eric, think it'd be a cool video. Teach how to read a map in the woods, as well as survival prep. You've got the expertise and experience. Finance and survival is your niche. LOL. Yeah. I'll have to set up my camera so it would actually be makes sense. It's definitely one of those skills that it's a perishable skill. So even if I'm like telling you about it, you got to go out and see topography to kind of understand. Okay, this is why these lines on the map correlate to what I'm seeing. But yeah, I could definitely do that. Maybe, like I said, the Economic Ninja does another meetup. Maybe we'll do a survival class day. From Melissa. For the life of me, I can't understand WTF the U.S. is playing at. There has to be something huge happening behind the curtain. Okay, so I have the same thought pattern, and you might take um, heart in the fact that uh, it's always been like this. And what I mean by that is um, there's always been corruption. There's always been uh, a side of politics that's semi-Marxist, semi-communist. If you read, I just watched the movie Mr. Jones. It's a really good movie about the reporter that uh, really uncovered what Stalin was doing to the Ukrainians. But the important part is uh, there was plenty of reporters, one from the New York Times that got an award for his reporting on Stalin, that they were saying this is the way of the future. And then also, if you look at history, um, there was big movements for uh, assisted suicide, uh, killing the disabled. There was a big movement in the early part of the 20th century in the United States from the left, and it kind of fell out of fashion after eugenics. That's the word I was thinking of. It fell out of fashion, out of popular culture because of what was going on in Germany, and everyone was like, "Man, that's kind of evil." Yeah, it is. So, what am I getting at? I think it's always there's always been corruption in the United States. Uh, in a way, we have tools to see it now. What you're watching me on now, um, you got all kinds of social media. So I think it's always been bad. It's always been this war between people who are top down government control and people who want freedom. But what's America playing at? I would say most politicians have zero, and I do mean zero, respect or admiration or desire to be controlled by the Constitution. They have zero. Most politicians. There are a few that are different, but majority of them, it's all about power and control. It's all about taking the seat and retaining the seat. So they'll say anything, do anything, yada yada. And unfortunately, we'll vote for it. So um, I think it's got to get pretty bad before people realize. What I mean by pretty bad is people have to go to the government, clamor for, let's say, stimmy checks, more stimmy. Please help us because inflation's out of control. They clamor to the government for more stimmy checks. Of course, Congress acquiesces, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And there has to be that kind of pain for people to realize the government's not the solution. And unfortunately, we have to do this every 80 years or so. If you ever read The Fourth Turning or heard that, if you haven't, I would recommend looking into that because it is kind of true how these generational cycles happen. All right, from Lucy Bean. The reason Russia is the bad guy is because Germany and Russia are buddies. Buddies, then NATO is toast, and the Ottoman Empire 2.0. Germany must buy Qatari gas controlled by the USA. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And then that would lead me to my next question. Who blew up Nord Stream 2 and who does it benefit? And why do we let it happen in the first place? Okay, so the enemy is always the Germans. The slave has been Russia since before time. The Germans have always caused trouble in Europe. Yeah, I know the United States doesn't want Germany anywhere near Russia. That's for sure. Oh, Slavs, not slaves. I see. Very good reply. Thank you, Eric. Oh, yeah, no problem. No politician gives two crap about the Constitution. Democrat or Republican, none. They are both one in the same. Yeah, it's quite the uniparty. Uh, my advice to people, because I kind of think, okay, so we can complain, we could bitch and moan, and we could say, uh, politicians are corrupt. And I think human beings have the capacity. If the office itself allows you to be corrupt, meaning we kind of look the other way when people do things like insider trading. If that is a possibility, who is it going to attract? Right? Most people that you know who are good people have zero desire to run for politics for very good reasons. And so it attracts these narcissistic, crazy people, unfortunately. And, I've thought about running for office after I get out of the military, to be honest, but I don't know. I think if the incentives are misaligned, you're always going to have corruption. Also, if we have a society who, I think politics is downstream from culture. So if we have a society that is morally decayed, they need some kind of come to Jesus meeting, meaning pain economically to wake them up, unfortunately. Yeah, it's kind of sad what's going on in this country. I'll tell you, last 2 years in the military has been real rough. And, this is just me speaking personally. I don't know a lot of people who want to join or are joining, if they are joining, for to fight to support and defend the Constitution. They're joining because it's an adventure of some kind, but it's not some higher calling to support and defend the Constitution, because they realize subconsciously the military really has nothing to do today, nothing to do with supporting and defending the Constitution, which is very sad. All right. If politicians can't win by promising to end entitlements, then how is hyperinflation collapse not a guarantee? So that's a great question. I don't think when you say hyperinflation, you got to look at how much the Weimar Republic printed. And if you look at any country who dealt with hyperinflation, their M2 money supply went parabolic, like 10,000% in 1 year kind of thing. So I think we got to define what hyperinflation is. And I think the proper definition is 50% per month. So can we see that in the United States? I do believe so, but I think that'll be at the tail end of the dollar. So if we get to the point where it's 50% inflation per month in the United States with the United States dollar, what's going on in Canada, what's going on in Europe, what's going on all over the world is going to be a whole lot worse, which will lead to, yeah. Your assistance is required urgently. I'm being requested to go upstairs. I think there's something going on with my son. So anyways, I'll leave it there. Sorry to end abruptly, but I got to go help with my kiddo. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. And I'm going to try to do this every Monday. I'm going to hit the road. I hit the road this week, so I'm going to have a little bit of time to make longer videos. But thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys have a good evening. See you guys in the next one. Peace.